John 17 opens with the teacher saying, "Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son so that the Son may glorify you." In a sense, we can tell it's throwdown time. But the central questions of the matter come later in 1726. To the Father, Jesus says, "I made your name known to them, and I will make it known, so that the love with which you have loved me may be in them, and I in them." What, I wonder, is making the Father's name known, and what is the love with which he has loved Christ? In a total absence of reward, it's surrendering all to belong to everything. Belonging is what egos need in order to serenely yield back into the unmanifest the psychological echoes of divinity itself. In Christ, all is in everything. Everything shows the all. If you and I can hear this, wholeness is an obligation. A revealed God, a self revealed as love. These oblige us to knowing mystery, to a process of learning that love is not just a feeling, but a verb, not just a verb, but a state of being. Both words, not only "I will be your God, you will be my people," but also "I am not your God, and you are not my people," came from the same divine source. And it confirms that non-being is a part of God, part of humility. God became "I am" to fix a problem, and Christ emptied himself to complete his work. As a person made in the triune image, you do not need a self to move, act lovingly, be quiet, or offer worship to God. I do not want to spend my life secretly envious of those who manipulate to get their needs met. I do not want to spend my life resentful of a society that tells me paying attention to its values is justice, while it ignores my values wholesale. I do not want to use spiritual work to correct vice, or vice to compensate for attachment to spiritual work. So I've got to find a reason to buy in, to continue to give while the world is on the take. Even if it's not, only what comes of the Spirit is spirit. The things of God themselves are destined for purification. When I don't allow that work to happen, I neglect part of the curriculum. I didn't want to say egos need belonging at first. There's too much of a danger of dividing society into us and them, thereby giving myself the resources to ignore all the things in me and in us that remain unconverted. I believe Christ's real presence suffuses all creation, and I believe God loved Christ in the same absolutely ordinary way he loves everything. As a cosmic revelation, Christ is nothing special. All the theologically trained listeners will, I'm sure, have left the chat shortly. At the same time, practice rings bells that can't be unrung. Being beholden to mystery is the cost of revelation. Attachment and craving are the cost of desire and fulfillment. For sharing the divine bliss of creativity, we owe a debt of sustenance. I believe that all these things you can't unsee are true of Christ as well. No one is right in using them as an elitist merit badge, but it's cool if your eyes are closed to that, because we all need to remember when we couldn't see it either. If belonging is a name for why we can't go backwards, then the statement is true. My life is not my own, and everything that once belonged to self now belongs to Christ. I'd like to talk about making the Father's name known in terms of acceptance of reality and working with aversions and attractions to the development of equanimity. But Jesus also says to God, glorify me in your own presence with the glory that I had before the world began. There is a triune divine consciousness at which theologians have hinted when they talk about perichoresis, or the dancing in a circle that the Trinity does in itself. Whatever that is, it takes place after this life. It's the fruition of giving up self at the promptings of the Spirit, not ego, dividing us from vice, revealing the Son who finds what's lost to shadow in us. The triune divine consciousness is the result of Christ within gradually elevating his consciousness until he has become nobody and is united with the compassionate observer. But the Spirit isn't confined to the body or what's visible, and neither is Christ's consciousness. So mystery is where we're headed. It's certain. I'd like to talk about the love with which God loved Christ in terms of unconditional giving, but that's a risk and a bit simplistic, because continuing to give to a world that's on the take really exploits people's codependent lack of limits. And that's not of the Spirit. In a deeper sense, the love with which God loved Christ is in living and dying at the same time. It's consenting to become an enfleshment of the mirror of paradox. When I bear what's unfair and unjust, it drives my inner monologue crazy with complaining. And that's an opportunity to see my woundedness clearly, to hold space for it, to live out of that part of myself that can treat it compassionately. It's an elevation of consciousness that isn't automatic. No one ever got abs of steel from doing a single sit-up. It's the same with getting a bird's eye view of inequity. We keep being put in unfair situations because our exercise needs practice to become precise. St. Paul says, we are God's children now. What we shall be has not yet been revealed. And it quickly dispenses with our craving for future reward. The teacher leans heavy on interbeing, on the way all is in everything, when he says, I in them and you in me. But there's an objective, that they may be completely one. The more awake people are to their need to become a mirror of paradox, the quicker they're going to elevate their thinking, and the easier it's going to be to live together. The Psalms say, how good and pleasant it is when brothers live in unity. If we could merely avoid impulsively acting on our inner disunity, making it someone else's problem, a great deal of heavy lifting would get done. And rest assured, this is the work that the one who became nobody to give all things to the Father has already always been doing. If there are parts of ourselves that are more occupied with gripes than with gratitude, then as to what our work is, there is no uncertainty at all.